Imagine waking up in a world overshadowed by a Reich that stretches from the Atlantic Ocean in the west to the Ural Mountains in the east. One state, one army, one language, and an unforgiving ideology that rules every corner of life. Hitler, not a defeated dictator who died in a bunker, but a living emperor issuing orders from a colossal palace in Berlin, renamed Germania, the planned capital of the world. In this alternate timeline, Germany didn't lose the war. They won, and they conquered the world. How? Let's start with the turning point. In 1941, Operation Barbarossa, the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. In our reality, German forces stalled and froze in the brutal Russian winter. But here, the Nazis prepare for winter early. With full technological backing and more efficient logistics, they capture Moscow. Stalin's regime collapses. The Red Army disbands, and communism is erased from Europe. The result? Germany seizes the oil fields of the Caucasus. Supply routes to the Allies are severed. Resources flow freely. Oil, coal, metals, and millions of slave laborers. The Nazi war machine becomes unstoppable. In the West, Britain collapses after failed Allied landings in France. A devastating siege crushes morale, and London eventually signs a bitter peace agreement, withdrawing from Europe and surrendering to Hitler's terms. The United States, despite its industrial power, becomes strategically isolated. With German forces expanding into Africa and seizing the Suez Canal, global trade is disrupted. And in the Pacific, Japan and Germany divide influence, creating a world ruled by two empires, the Greater Germanic Reich and the Empire of the Rising Sun. But what about inside Europe? This is where the nightmare begins. At the heart of the continent, an unprecedented authoritarian regime takes hold. The Gestapo watches everyone. Education is rewritten to teach children that Hitler is the father of the nation and that non-Aryans are less than human. Art is censored. Jewish music, surrealism, modernism, all banned. Cinema becomes pure propaganda, and director Leni Riefenstahl is worshipped not for innovation, but for obedience. Economically, Europe appears prosperous, but at a horrific cost. The entire system runs on slave labor. Millions are forced into camps and factories, Poles, Ukrainians, Russians, and others. Production surges, but it is built upon corpses. And then, a more terrifying ambition, a Nazi base on the moon. It might sound like fiction, but declassified German documents show interest in long-range rocketry. Werner von Braun, before being recruited by the US, dreamed of orbital missile platforms. And what of the Arab world? In this alternate future, Ba'athist parties could find inspiration in Nazi ideology. Arab independence movements are crushed or co-opted. Palestine becomes a tool in Nazi propaganda, used to stir division and redraw borders for strategic gain. And the atomic bomb? In this timeline, Germany completes its Uran project, the uranium project. The atomic bomb is built before the Americans can finish theirs. Germany becomes the world's first nuclear power, but unlike in our world, where it ended war, here it becomes a tool of blackmail. And you, as a citizen in this world, have no voice, no rights. Even your thoughts could be a crime. Books, music, the internet, if it exists at all, are tightly controlled. Words like freedom, equality, and human rights are outlawed. You could be denied the right to reproduce simply for not being Aryan enough. How does this world end? Perhaps in global nuclear war, or an environmental collapse from overexploitation, or, if hope still flickers, a massive revolution from the enslaved East, a final uprising that shatters the Reich after decades of darkness. But thankfully, that world never came to be. Despite the horror, Nazism was defeated, Hitler fell, and Europe was rebuilt on new foundations. But this what if reminds us of something dangerous. Civilizations don't always fall to invasion. Sometimes they crumble when they normalize hate and accept tyranny in silence. So the real question is not just what if, but are we truly learning from history or sleepwalking toward repeating it?